Hey everyone, Bryant, part of the Shamrock Restaurant Business Consulting team, here today with a really fun and quick segment. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to talk about this concept of the knife and the whisk. And this is one of my favorite little stories to tell and something that I think will evoke quite a bit of thought with our audience here. So the concept of the knife and the whisk is pretty simple. When we look at these two tools comparatively, there's quite a bit of difference. And so I want to walk through those. First, when you think about the knife, what kind of comes to the top of everybody's mind is this concept of labor and the expense of labor. That expense is compounded when you consider that not just knife skills, but the overall dynamic to be able to execute is going to come at a higher rate for operators. Now, that's not necessarily a big problem until we get into this next point, which is safety. The number 2 highest incident after slips and falls in the restaurants are cuts with knives. So that has a big implication when it comes to safety. Next, there's consistency. And we've all been there. Somebody didn't do last night's prep and we're chopping onions or tomatoes on the fly. Not only do we have consistency in the quality of the product, probably yield issues as well, which we cover in here. This is probably the most important piece of all, and that is the point of distinction. And this is a concept that we talk about ad nauseum. It's super, super critical to understand. Your guest will not be able to identify whose blade went into your product. So many products right now through our RSS program with produce, all the way to our butcher shop, Meat Co. and our seafood company. All of your pre-portioned products can be cut to spec, and that takes the knife out of your hand, and the consumer does not know whose knife went into it. Next, and I think critically after we talked about yield, is cost. Most people are afraid to let or source somebody else to do their cutting because they are afraid of the cost. That might have been true 10 years ago, but when you look at the rapid inclination of labor over the past 10 years, and certainly where it's at today, we know that that is an absolute non-starter at this point, right? The efficiencies born out of these companies who are doing custom fabrication and cutting is so much better than what we have in our businesses today that cost is not even part of the negotiable. So now let's compare that to the whisk. And this is quite a bit different. We run through the same points, but all of a sudden we have a different way to align this. So we look to transition our labor expense from the knife to the whisk. So we're not advocating that you create more prep work. We're actually saying it's supplemental. Stop chopping your lettuce, onion, and tomato and start putting your whisk into items. Not just from a labor standpoint being neutralized, but also when it comes to the skill set, that's a bit softer, a little bit easier to apply towards the people that are coming in our door every day. Additionally, safety. Never heard of anybody having to go to the hospital from a whisk burn. Next, we have our consistency. If we're following our recipes and we're making it foolproof, then consistency also should not be an issue. Certainly not as large as when we're putting a knife into it. Next, and again, most critical, that point of distinction. Now, compared to the blade where the consumer doesn't necessarily know whose blade went into it, I promise you, they'll be able to tell the difference when it's your whisk in a product, whether it's a sauce or a dressing or you're making homemade desserts, the guest will absolutely be able to tell. And then this ties into cost. Again, from that point of distinction, if the guest knows this is unique and they haven't tasted this flavor anywhere else, they don't have a commoditized value in their head about what this is worth. So we should be able to charge more, and we do so effectively, and we'll cover this again in other segments relative to menu and some other pieces. But that's pretty much it. It's a relatively simple concept. Hopefully it'll make you look at your business a little bit different and assess those items. Now, if you want to have a free one-on-one consultation with any of our 13 consultants, all you got to do is jump online, go to shamrockfoodservice.com, click on the resources tab and click on the consulting tab. We've got a quick form that you can fill out, tell us what you want to chat about, and we'll call you. So thanks a ton for tuning in. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time.